Hello, I welcome again for the lecture series on engineering thermodynamics. In this session, let us discuss the topic thermodynamic relations. At the end of this session, you will know Maxwell's relations, TdS equations, Joule-Thomson expansion, Clausius-Clapeyron equation, and conditions for thermodynamic equilibrium and stability. First, let us review some of the thermodynamic equations that we have studied, thermodynamic relations, you can say. A pure substance existing in a single phase has only two independent variables. Of the 8 quantities P, V, pressure, volume, temperature, entropy, internal energy, enthalpy, Helmholtz function, and Gibbs function. Any one may be expressed as a function of any two other. I'll clarify this a little later. So all these things are familiar now, but again, just recall F and G, which are discussed under availability topic. So F, the Helmholtz free energy, is the maximum amount of work a system can do at constant volume and temperature. And the Gibbs function is the maximum amount of work a system can do at constant pressure and temperature. Here it is constant volume, constant pressure. So I have discussed this thing under availability function for a closed system, availability function for a steady flow system. So let us review this equation. Equation 1, du is equal to TdS minus PdV. You know, first law applied to a closed system, I can write delta Q is equal to du plus delta W. From entropy definition, I can replace dq, delta Q by TdS, du, and delta W PdV. So then I can write du is equal to TdS minus PdV. That's how I have got this equation. dH is equal to du plus PdV plus VdP is equal to, I can write TdS plus VdP. This also we have studied. H is equal to U plus PV. When I differentiate by definition, dH is equal to du plus PdV plus VdP. And du plus PdV from here it is TdS. That's how you get TdS. dH is equal to TdS plus VdP. Now the definition of Helmholtz function, F is equal to U minus Ts. If I differentiate, I'll get dF is equal to du minus TdS minus SdT. So now you can see here du minus TdS. From here, du minus TdS I can replace by minus PdV. So minus PdV and SdT. Okay. So then this is capital U. Okay. Similarly, by definition of Gibbs function, G is equal to H minus Ts. If I differentiate this, I'll get dG is equal to dH minus TdS minus SdT. So dH minus TdS I can replace by VdP and this minus SdT. So that's how you get these relationships. So you are already aware of these relationships. Now let us see the Maxwell equations. So for that, I have used this exact differential, the mathematical understanding. Suppose z is a function of f of x comma y. then you can, if you differentiate dz, I can write this as dz dou z by dou y, keeping x as constant, plus, right, similarly, like, dou y dou z by dou y, dou x, sorry, dou x, keeping as y as constant. Of course, here I should write dy, I'm sorry, I should write dx, and here I should write dy. Correct. Some of these things you have already studied in mathematics right here. I think this is what you have studied in calculus. So then I can write this dou f by dou x as m, dou f by dou y as n, like this. So once again I can differentiate. Finally I can prove that dou m by dou y keeping x constant is equal to dou n by dou x keeping y as constant. I can, once again, if I differentiate, I can prove that. Anyway, this is what we call it as the exact differential. This comes from, calculus. Please remember that. Okay, now using this mathematical idea, the exact differential idea, so I will write down the Maxwell's equations. So I have taken this, let me call this as equation A. Now if I take this equation, du is equal to TdS minus PdV. Du is equal to TdS minus PdV. This equation I have taken. Correct. Then I compare with dz is equal to mdx plus ndy. Dz is equal to mdx plus ndy. Then by comparing this, say m is equal to t, x can be replaced by s, n can be replaced by minus p, and y can be replaced by v. So that's what I have written. M equal to t, x equal to s, n is equal to minus p, y equal to v. Now go to this equation, put t over here, in y place you put v, x place you put s, similarly n place you put minus p, x place you put s, and y place you substitute v. Then you are going to get this equation. Okay, that's how we'll get the first Maxwell's equation. Again, you take this equation, dH is equal to TdS plus VdP. dH is equal to TdS plus VdP. Compare this with this equation. So from that you can get m can be replaced by t, x can be replaced by s, n can be replaced by v, y can be replaced by p. Go to this equation, make those replacements. Then you are going to get this equation. Same way, you take the third equation, then you take the fourth equation, make the comparisons, you substitute, you'll be getting this equation as well as this equation. These equations we call them as Maxwell's relationships. Okay, so the fundamental thing is you must know from calculus the exact differential equation. So this is the idea. Okay, with this, now let us go to TdS equation. So I explain one thing. A pure substance existing in a single phase has only two independent variables, and any one may be expressed as a function of any two others. Look at this. Entropy is a function of temperature and volume. So then using the exact differential idea, I can write like this. Then we apply the definition of the heat capacity to the first term and a Maxwell's relation to the second term, and we can obtain this. Okay, ds, then Cv by T dt. So use the Maxwell's relations dp by dt and dv from those Maxwell's equations. Okay, so the multiplied throughout by T, and you will be getting this equation. The same way, we can derive this equation considering entropy is a function of temperature and pressure. Here I am considering entropy as a function of temperature and volume and writing the mathematical relationship which I mentioned over here. So based on that and using Maxwell's relationships, I am writing down these equations. So one equation I have derived in the same way I have written down. You can make the appropriate substitution and you can obtain this equation. This is what we call them as TDS equations. Okay, right, sir. Now, similarly, we can also derive equations for, you know that Cp minus Cv is equal to gamma. So using this Maxwell's relationship, it is possible that we can derive them as Cp by Cv is equal to minus T dou V by dou T square, keeping T constant, multiplied by dou P by dV at constant T. So finally, by replacing these quantities by beta and kT, we call it as isothermal compressibility. This we call it as volume expansivity, and we can write this equation in this fashion. So Cp minus Cv is equal to Tv beta squared by kT. So beta is this and kT is given by this. Okay. Now let us understand Joule-Thomson expansion. So earlier in a steady flow energy equation, I have explained a throttling process where I have proved enthalpy at the entrance is equal to inlet is equal to enthalpy at the exit, neglecting kinetic energy, potential energy, work, as well as the heat interaction between the system and surroundings. So here by throttling a gas, it is possible to either cool or heat. And such an expansion process is known as what we call it as Joule-Thomson expansion. So let me take a throttling device. This is a throttling valve or throttling device, we can call it. We use this in refrigeration, air conditioning systems, and many other places. So it is just a tube with a valve here. It is completely insulated. The inlet conditions are temperature is T1, pressure is P1. Outlet conditions are temperature T2 and pressure P2. So here we know from steady flow enthalpy at entrance is or the inlet is equal to enthalpy at the exit. Let us conduct certain experiments on this. To begin with, let me keep some temperature T1 and pressure P1. Let me consider this is the state, initial state. Then I open this throttle to a certain position, allow some steady state to happen. Next, I measure T2 and P2 at this point. let me mark this is the one state. Again, change the valve position, allow steady state to happen. Then again note down temperature and pressure value, note down this state. Go on doing like this, go on doing like this. So right? These are the number of experiments I have conducted, noted down these properties, and I join all these property by a line. So throttling, as I said, enthalpy across the valve remains same. So this is an isoenthalpy curve. And I have drawn this graph on temperature versus pressure because I am two properties I am measuring, temperature and the pressure. So it is TP diagram. You observe at certain values of pressure, this is the exit, this is the inlet pressure and inlet temperature. For one throttle position, this is the pressure I get here and the temperature I get. The exit temperature is higher than the inlet temperature. Again, in the next step, also the exit temperature higher than the inlet temperature. Exit temperature is higher than the inlet temperature. Exit temperature is higher than the inlet temperature. What's happening here? The gas is heating up here. The temperature of the gas at the exit is higher than the temperature of the gas at the inlet. These conditions, for this pressure and temperature conditions, your heating is happening actually. Then further it reaches to a maximum value, maximum temperature. Again, if I change the throttle position, the next exit temperature is start decreasing like this. Might even come below this temperature. So here, if you consider this part of the curve, so if I find the slope of this curve, this I can call it as dt and this I can call it as dp. I can define the slope as dt by dp. Okay. So if the slope is positive, you can see that the exit temperatures are decreasing. So something like cooling happens. If you write the slope over here, it is minus slope. That means dt by dp, if I say, dt by dp, you can say minus, less than 0, heating happens. So at this point, dt by dp is equal to 0. Here heating to cooling happening. So this point I can call it as inversion point of inversion. And this slope, let me call it as mu j. That is Joule-Thomson coefficient, I can call it. So now I can go on conducting the experiment for different inlet condition. I'll get another curve. Like that, I'll get a series of curves like this, isoenthalpy curves. So there is a maximum here for this curve, there is a maximum here, maximum here, maximum here. You go on and you join these points. This curve I can call it as, this is the inversion point, and a curve passing through all these inversion points, I call it as inversion curve. So left of the inversion curve is the cooling region, and right at this thing is heating region. So we can use this kind of applications. Like one of the application, what they call it as Hill's tube. So one end we can get cold air, Hill's tube. I can make it enter like this and see that one end it gets cold air and one end one side I can adjust the valve in such a way, other side you'll get the hot air and all that. Probably for cooling of tools, right? In mines and all that where compressed air is available, I can use this idea. So we are using this in refrigeration for, the temperature here is lower than the inlet temperature. That's what kind of an idea. Air conditioner we are using. So this is the idea that has been used for cooling as well as the heating of, you know, real gases. So now I can define Joule-Thomson coefficient as I told you. Mu J is equal to dou T by dou P, keeping H constant, enthalpy constant. So this can be written like this using, once you have the Maxwell's relationships, you can write down these things. So this equation is applicable only for real gases. Now, ideal gas, PV equal to RT, then dou V by dou T, you find out, substitute into this equation, it will become 0. So that means for an ideal gas, temperature does not change. So enthalpy at the inlet is equal to enthalpy at outlet, means temperature at inlet is equal to temperature at outlet. So you can just click on this YouTube video. There is a good explanation on Joule-Thomson effect. Okay. Now let us learn another equation, what you call it as a Clausius-Clapeyron equation. So we have studied like the steam formation, temperature versus heat input diagram I had drawn, and I explained the various terminologies associated with this. So this part I called it as sensible heat of water, and this I called it as latent heat of vaporization, and this I called it as the superheat. So I told you that you can always note down the values of latent heat of vaporization from thermodynamic tables. So can we predict this value or estimate this value or evaluate this value? This is a kind of question like, can we find out HFG? So it is possible to do with the Clausius-Clapeyron relationship. So here, during phase change, transitions like melting, vaporization, and sublimation. So these things also I have explained. Let us see. If there is triple point of water, so you have something like solid. You want to completely convert that into, let us say, gaseous phase. What do you call that? Sublimation. Your solid you want to convert into, say, liquid. That is what we call it as melting. And you have liquid you want to convert into vapor. That is what you can call it as vaporization. Melting, vaporization, sublimation. Here you're getting from solid phase directly into gaseous phase, solid to liquid phase, liquid to vapor phase. So the temperature and pressure remain constant. You see here, when I explain this temperature heat input diagram for steam formation, let us say this is a constant pressure line. Here you have the saturated liquid point, this is the saturated vapor point. A liquid gradually gets converted into vapor. By the time it comes to this point, it is completely vapor, it is completely liquid, in between a mixture of water and vapor. In this case, you've seen this, we call it as a saturation temperature. Temperature is also constant and the pressure is also constant. However, volume changes. And so also entropy changes. Correct. So the equilibrium between water and water vapor depends upon the temperature of the system. If the temperature increases, the saturation pressure of the water vapor increases. The rate of increase in vapor pressure per unit increase in temperature is given by the Clapeyron equation. You see here, again, if I go on drawing the line, you see here, as the pressure increases, the saturation temperature increases. Or the saturation temperature increases, the pressure is also increasing. So the rate of increase in vapor pressure per unit increase in temperature is given by this equation. So dou P by dou T. So entropy increases, volume increases. So this is nothing but, again, whatever it is, you can call it as the latent heat. Correct? Entropy is nothing but heat by temperature and the volume. So if I know this, if I know these things, we can always find out this. So the equation can be used to estimate the latent heat of vaporization for a substance undergoing a phase change. So please be clear. dP by dt slope, in this case, entropy increases. That's why entropy of the liquid, entropy of the vapor, let us say, the change in entropy. Volume at this point, volume at this point, I have written. Entropy is nothing but heat input divided by heat by temperature. You know, ds is equal to delta Q by T, and these values are known. So if I know this pressure gradient with respect to temperature, and it is possible to find out that. Okay, I can draw another diagram, let us say PT diagram, and I can do this. So this is what I have shown. You know, this is the triple point of water. This line is for water because this is the characteristic for water, right? After freezing, it expands. For other things, any other substance is what you get. So here I have the solid phase. Here I have the liquid phase. I have the vapor phase. If I follow this path, means if maintaining this pressure, if I increase this temperature, I'll get vapor. This I call it as sublimation. Or keeping the this temperature constant, if I go on maintain this pressure, I'll start sublimating. Same way, the solid I can convert into liquid by increasing the pressure as well as by increasing the temperature. Or keep one pressure and go on increasing the temperature, it will become liquid. So again, liquid to vapor, I can keeping the pressure constant, I keep on increasing the temperature, I can convert liquid into vapor. This is a state where liquid, solid and vapor, all three phases will be there, and this is around 0.01 degree, right, Celsius. Okay, this is what we call it as triple point of water, where all the three phases exist in equilibrium. Okay, let us study now thermodynamic equilibrium. Earlier I had explained thermodynamic equilibrium to happen. There should be mechanical equilibrium, there should be thermal equilibrium, and there should be chemical equilibrium. When all these three equilibrium satisfy, then the system will be in thermodynamic equilibrium. Let us establish conditions for equilibrium. Okay. So the thermodynamic potential is a word, very interesting thing like this. Suppose if there is a hot body here, there is a cold body here, and if I write heat will flow from here to here because there is a thermal gradient. This body is at this temperature, other body is at this temperature. There is a gradient existing. This is what we call it as potential. T1 minus T2 that exists. That's why the heat flows. So anything has to happen, there should be a gradient or potential. The thermodynamic potential which controls means same way. If there is a chemical potential, there can be a pressure difference. So this is how things will flow, like one quantity will flow. The quantity will the quantity in question will flow from higher gradient to a lower gradient. So if these two, both of them become equal, then it will come to equilibrium. Correct. If there is a gradient, then this will be in equilibrium. Equilibrium in a system depends on the particular constraints imposed on the system. Okay, let us look at what exactly it means. Let delta Q be the amount of heat transfer involved between the system and the reservoir in an infinitesimal irreversible process. And ds denote the entropy change of the system and ds not the entropy change of the reservoir. There is a reservoir, there is a system. This put together, what you call it as isolated system and surroundings you put together as a system. But here if you consider reservoir, it is losing heat, so its entropy decreases, and here it is receiving heat, its entropy increases. Correct. So if you know the temperature, the heat, and we can find out those entropy changes. So let us say ds not the entropy change of the reservoir. For this, let me write it as ds naught, and this I will write it as ds. Okay. So for the whole system, ds naught plus ds must be greater than 0. Entropy should increase because it is irreversible process. ds naught, it is losing heat, so let me write minus delta Q by T. So substitute here delta Q minus delta Q by T plus ds greater than 0, or delta Q by minus delta Q plus TDS must be greater than 0, or when I multiply throughout by minus sign, you will be getting this. Okay. During the infinitesimal process, the internal energy of the system changes by an amount du, and an amount of work PdV is performed. So applying first law of thermodynamics for a closed system executing a process, delta Q can be written as du plus PdV. This du plus PdV I'll substitute here. I'll get du plus PdV minus TdS less than 0. This is the equation I get. If the constraints are, now we'll put the constraints. If the constraints are constant u and constant v, u is constant, v is constant. So what should happen? Differential will become 0, this will become 0. Or TDS will become greater than 0, or DS greater than 0. This is what you get. So the conditions of constant u means if the internal energy is not changing, constant, volume is not changing, refers to an isolated system, definitely. So in an isolated, no energy remains constant. Therefore, entropy is the critical parameter to determine the state of thermodynamic equilibrium of an isolated system. The entropy of an isolated system always increases, and when it reaches to a maximum value, then it becomes an equilibrium system. So there will not be any potential. Same, let us continue with this equation. So I was discussing du plus PdV minus TdS is 0. Let us put the constraints T and V. Here U and V were the constraints. Now let me put T and V are the constraints. So what should happen? V is constant, gone. T is a constant value. Anyway, du minus TdS. I can also write du minus Ts less than 0. U minus Ts is what you call it as Helmholtz function. So that must be less than 0. Minimum at the final equilibrium state. Keeping T and V constant, here U and V is the thing. Suppose T and P constant, that is a constant, again in this equation. So I can write here, differentiate and all these things, right? Finally, I'll get this way. Again, U plus PV, I can call it as H minus Ts is less than 0. This is what you call it as Gibbs function. So dg must be less than 0 under these constraints. Okay. So it should become minimum. Then it will become, the system will reach to an equilibrium state. So the necessary but not sufficient condition for thermodynamic equilibrium are S should reach maximum when the entropy reaches to a maximum value. Then we attain the equilibrium state. F will become F minimum, G will become G minimum. Okay. So here at this point, any changes, they will all become 0, 0, 0. That is the thing. For a completely isolated system, S is maximum at thermodynamic equilibrium. For a system with controlled constant temperature and volume, F is minimum at thermodynamic equilibrium. For a system with controlled constant temperature and pressure, G is minimum at thermodynamic equilibrium. First, this is the condition for stable, necessary condition. The stable, in addition to the above, it can be proved that Cv must be greater than 0 for thermal stability and dou P dou V must be less than 0 for mechanical stability. Similarly, I have to write for chemical conditions also. So that is, these are the conditions for stability. So I can write like this. I can explain this way. Suppose I have some system here. So if I disturb this system, it will come back to its original condition. This is what you call it as a stable system. So there is a entropy is maximum, corresponds to this. You see here in this case, suppose if I disturb this system, it will fall down this way or this way. Correct? That time entropy, you can say it's in the minimum condition. So it's neutral. It will occupy some other position. That is what you can call it as a neutral one. So I can disturb this, it will go to this, again it will come back, so on. But if I further disturb it, probably it will fall down. This I call it as composite or metastable conditions. So this is what has been written over here. So these are the conditions. So you have understood what is a thermodynamic equilibrium. Now you have understood for equilibrium, what are the conditions the thermodynamic system must meet under what constraints. So with this, let us complete the first course on engineering thermodynamics that is normally taught at the third semester of engineering. So with these fundamentals, probably we can start studying energy conversion system. However, another very important topic that we could have covered could have been reaction thermodynamics. Anyway, in energy conversion system, we will consider those kind of things. So hope all these lectures would help you to read advanced thermodynamics books and understand the concepts better. Thank you very much.